No shortage of drama out of Donald Trump's civil trial in New York this week after he and Ivana took to the witness box, maintaining their innocence. The case, brought by New York Attorney General Letitia James, alleges Donald Trump's annual statements of financial condition routinely contained fraudulent and inflated figures designed to get better deals on loans and insurance. Joining me to discuss this now is trial lawyer Robert Barnes. Robert Barnes, thank you so much for joining us. Take us through what is going on here, because we've talked about this case before on this show. I don't think anybody has ever really been prosecuted for what Trump is being accused of. Now Trump's children are being dragged into it. How is this not just a gigantic witch hunt by a politically motivated prosecutor and a politically motivated judge?
It's one of the most selective prosecutions that's ever occurred in the United States. And it's the most unusual fraud case because the judge has ruled that fraud is actually irrelevant to the case, which the judge had to rule in terms of materiality because there was no fraud. As President Trump has identified repeatedly, he paid back all the loans. All the lawyers who looked at this didn't have a problem with it. All the economists who looked at it didn't have a problem with it. All the appraisers who looked at it didn't have a problem with it. All the banks, some of the most sophisticated banks in the world were involved in lending money to President Trump, didn't have a problem with it. The big insurance companies that gave him the insurance deals that the Attorney General says somehow were too generous, they didn't have any problem with it, and they're some of the biggest insurance companies in the world. And the reason is because there was no fraud. So you've got a fake case from a judge who's embarrassing the rule of law in America by a prosecutor who has flagrantly thrown aside First Amendment rights of the president to do this selective prosecution in what is an ongoing show trial that is mostly a show of what is embarrassing to the status of the rule of law in America to the global audience.
And, I mean, we know now about the judge, too, that his wife has been out on social media posting all sorts of stuff about Trump. They've been trying to gag Trump also from talking about the case. Now, what are the dangers, though, because I've been reading about this, that they decide to hold Trump on contempt? Is this going to become this real sort of legal brinksmanship where somebody actually thinks they've got a chance to throw Donald Trump in the clink for contempt over violating a gag order, which, as you say, would be unconstitutional, likely against the First Amendment? How dangerous is this actually getting, A, for Trump, and B, Robert, for the democratic process and the rule of law?
It's getting dangerous to a level we've never seen before at both levels, not only for President Trump, but for the American people in our constitutional republic. Because what we're witnessing is a judge who's just abusing his power. It's a judge who shouldn't even be presiding over the case. It should have been assigned to the commercial division out of New York. It's a case the federal courts never should have allowed to go forward because the Attorney General said she was going to target Trump. It was the old Beria line to Stalin, show me the man, I'll find you the crime. She said, well, elect me and I'll harass Donald Trump into oblivion. And that's what she did. That should have been stopped by the federal courts at the inception. And now you have a judge who's embarrassed by the partisan corruption of his court, the partisan corruption of his staff, the partisan corruption of the prosecutor, all being exposed in what is fundamentally a fake case. And so what's he doing? He's gagging the president. He's gagging the lawyers. He's telling the lawyers they can't even file motions in court. He's threatening to imprison and jail President Trump. He's fining the president for exposing this fraud. I haven't seen a show trial like this since the Soviet Union, and that's what we're witnessing in live time in New York City.
Well, Robert, what are the chances then that this winds up backfiring spectacularly on the Democrats and the people who are running this and presumably pulling the strings behind the scenes here, insofar as, you know, the American people look at this and whether or not they're pro-Trump or not? And this is something that I have said very often on this show when I've talked about this, that you do not have to like Donald Trump or his policies to be alarmed about what's happening here. Is this part of the reason why we're starting to see Trump really moving further ahead, especially with independents in the polls?
No doubt. You're seeing the president have leads he has never had. He didn't have in 2015 or 2016, didn't have in 2020. He's leading across the board in all the key swing states. He has an edge in polls that have historically been hostile to him. The New York Times historically underrated President Trump's performance by 6 to 7 points, and they're saying he's winning by 4 to 5 points, sometimes 10 points in these key swing states. Why? Because the American people see through this. The ordinary people are simple. They're like, okay, who did President Trump harm? And nobody can give him an answer. There's no victim. The president didn't harm the banks, didn't harm the insurance company, didn't harm the government, didn't harm his employees. In fact, he helped them all. So it's like, why is there a lawsuit against them? Why are they trying to bankrupt them? Why are they trying to jail them? And if there's no corruption in the court system, why is the court system saying you can't talk about it? Why are they trying to gag him? Why are they trying to fine him? Why are they trying to jail him? If the ordinary person in America is seeing through this, the question at the end of it is, does the judicial system have any respect left in the United States amongst the ordinary American? You know how bad it is when Eric Holder's even going around saying, maybe this looks a little bad.
Eric Holder, absolutely. Now, on the other side of the ledger, of course, we've got a House committee now issuing subpoenas not just to Hunter and James Biden, but to a whole swag of Biden family associates, an art gallery dealer. I presume this is over Hunter's finger paintings that sold for suspiciously high amounts of money to people who may or may not have wanted something from the Biden family. Where does this all wind up landing, in your opinion? And do you think that there's more prima facie evidence here, as a lawyer, of wrongdoing by the Bidens than by the Trumps?
There's no doubt about it. Everything they've accused Trump of is what the Biden family is actually guilty of. You know, they said if you elect Trump, Trump's going to lead us into World War III. Biden's trying every means to lead us into World War III. They said if you can't trust Trump and his family because they're doing secret deals with foreign governments to enrich themselves. Biden was describing himself, not President Trump. And we're seeing that in live time. I mean, they put President Trump under microscopic inquiry, and all they can come up with is fake cases. And by contrast, it was an open secret when President Biden was Vice President Biden. There were people who approached my clients saying that for the right donation to the right Biden family member, magical things could happen to their cases involving the Department of Justice. So this has been kind of an open secret in Washington that Biden's entire family sold access to him to enrich him and the entire family and build his political machine. And it's just about time we finally start exposing it at a meaningful level in the House of Representatives. And I think the American people are going to be shocked at the scale, scope, and severity of the corruption of the Biden family.
Robert Barnes, we're going to have to leave it there, but we're going to come back to you again and talk about that scale of corruption as it emerges, if it emerges, in the weeks and months ahead. Robert Barnes, thank you so much for your time.